Okay, quick video here. I wanted to highlight an issue that a user pointed out to me on the comments. Um, this user wrote, does not seem to work, duplicated exactly as you show in FileMaker 19. Says there's no user when it's definitely there. Um, couple things before I show you uh, uh, a little bit of extra insight that might help you. I did want to point out that this is the first video I posted, and it was just to kind of show the building blocks. But I did correct some of those things in my second video, which is in the description here. Additional context added in part 2. So you might take a look at that. The examples I'm going to show you right now are from that file. So it's the part 2 file. So what I wanted to show is we want to see, and this is sort of like here's some ideas in debugging in FileMaker. Um, it has some built-in tools, and certainly you probably know your own tricks, but in this particular case, I want to debug this to see if it works. So first thing I want to do is I want to come over here to users, and I want to look at what records I have. Okay, I have a dummy record for myself, and then I have one for a fictitious username Bob Smith, and then I have one called Bob Thompson. So it's B Thompson 5454 or B Smith 2222. So I'm going to log into one of those users, and I want to make sure that it finds them. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and open up the script workspace. And I'll show you a trick that I like to use here. Whenever I go to my login script, this line right here is really the line that's doing the work. It's basically looking at the username, the G global username in the current file, and then it's looking across the relationship called users for the username there, and it's saying if these two equal. Okay, and if they equal, then do the rest of this code. Else, show a custom dialog and say there's not a matching user. So that's basically what this code here does. So one way you can troubleshoot, I like to use this a lot, is I will actually use custom dialogues for myself. That works really well. Or just take myself to another layout and pause the screen. So let's look at this. The second line of the script is if the password that they've entered in the global matches the password in the user file. So that means that the user file and the password are correct. Then do the following. It's going to set a variable with the value user ID. It's going to run a script called reset globals, which basically just zeroes out those global fields. So the next time a user tries to log in, they are empty. And then it will go to a layout in the application called menu. And it'll set a field in there using that variable just so that I can see that it worked. Okay, so let's run this first the way it is, and then I'll show you some additional troubleshooting debugging techniques that I use sometimes. So if I click login, I'm presented with this. So I'm going to do B Smith, and I believe if I remember correctly, the password for him is 2222. If I click OK, what it does is it does whatever it does, and then I end up here at this screen. Okay, and this screen might be other options. You might have a bunch of options that you take them to let them enter their time, or whatever functions your application does. But right down here is the interesting part, is the part I care about, the user ID. Okay, so it's 101. Now if I go ahead and exit and do B Thompson, I just want to validate, make sure that I remember what B Thompson's password is, 5454. Okay. So I'm going to navigate, off of that record, and I'm going to go back to login and do B Thompson, and then type in 5454. And whenever I click OK, it should take me to the screen, and the username, the user ID, should be different. So just based upon that, I'm pretty sure this worked. But let me show you another way we can check. What we can do here is we can, right after this if statement, we could have it take us to the layout of the record that it matched to. And the way we do that is there is a script step called go to related record. I may have scrolled past it already. Yeah, go to related record. When you double click that, what it wants you to do is it wants you to define the relationship that it's looking at. So we're looking at the user's relationship. And show record using what layout? What layout do you want to see that in? So I'm just going to tell it, show me the user layout. So just show me that user's. This is not something you would want to do in your app, but just for my troubleshooting, my debugging here, that's the most useful. And here's an important thing you want to do. Show only related records. Okay, I'll show you what that does in just a moment. So if you say OK, what it's going to do is it's going to go to that record, but then it does these other steps, right? It sets a variable, then it goes to another layout, etc. Chances are you'll never know that it did this. So what I want to do is I want to actually add a pause in my script. So there is a script step for that too, pause resume step. So if I enter that right after going to that, then it's going to pause my script and wait for me to continue it. Okay. So now, one thing I want to caution you to is before I inserted this step, it was doing everything from the current layout. But now I've taken it to a new layout. And I don't want to take the chance that it won't work on that other layout. So the first step after this resume should be to take me back to the layout I was originally on. So just think of it like this. This go to layout and this pause resume are in there so that I can see if this relationship is working. And then I have it take me back to the original layout, which is right here, and then continue this script. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And this time, whenever I do it, I'll use bsmith. And I'll type in 222, click OK. Okay, a couple things I want to show you. It appears as though it worked. It took me to Bob Smith's record. The main thing I want to point out to you is it did pause the script. You see up here, script is paused. So if I click continue, it would finish the rest of the steps. But most importantly, I want to show you this. 1 out of 3. Okay, that means that it went through that relationship and found this record. And this is the only matching record. So it's not like it just found all records over in the user table. It found the exact one we wanted, took me to it, paused the script. Now when I click continue, you'll see that it brings us back to this menu screen and plugged in 101. I'm going to do it again with B. Thompson. And I believe that was 5454. And you'll see that it took me to B. Thompson's record. It's the only record it took me to. Okay, it's saying that there are 3 records total, but there's only one that it found that was a match for this particular step that I'm on. And it's this particular record. If I click continue, you'll see that that filled in B. Thompson's user ID. Okay, so I feel relatively certain based upon all that this is working. Of course, you're going to want to test. It's your solution. You're going to want to feel really confident with it. You're going to want to test all kinds of scenarios. You're going to want to test, having this user over here. Maybe sometimes they don't have a password, and does that work, or should it work? And do you need some steps in your script to check for that? So there's there's additional things. This is by no means foolproof and finished, but I just wanted to make sure that that relationship portion was working, and it does appear that it is. I'm going to create another video based upon another question that a user had. The user wanted, I believe if I understood the question, what the user wanted was they wanted a way that whenever a new user comes along, they can click a button that says, hey, create me a user account. So I'm gonna show you how you might do that. But before I end this video, I did want to show you a couple of things. So on this little test thing that I'm doing here, I'm basically running an if statement, and I'm saying if G username equals username, meaning what they typed into the global field, equals the username, then move on and do this, and if the password matches, etc. Another way you could do this is you could actually, instead of choosing that, there is a script step called isValid, and that usually works very well for this sort of thing too. So you go isValid, and then it wants you to tell it a field. So what you could basically do is choose any field in that user record. So we go through the user relationship, and you could pick any field in here, but I'm just going to use the username because I know that should have a value. So I'm going to say, is it valid? And that should work the same way as this other stuff we've been doing. We can test it real quick if you'd like. So I'll do bsmith 2222. Okay, it took me over there, it paused the script, and it should take me back and write 101 in my field, and it did. So that works too. So that's a couple of ways you can do it, as well as a way to troubleshoot it by adding some script steps to maybe take you to the layout and pause. Now you could have gotten rid of this, got rid of the pause, and we won't need the return to the original layout. One thing you could have done here is you could have chosen the item show custom dialog. And define what it should say. So I don't know what I want to call this, but debug. And then I might say something like the username found was, and if I go into the specify, I can put this in quotes. And then I can add something to it. I'll do an ampersand, and then I'll do user's username. Say OK. Let's see what this does. Okay, save that script. Come back over here. Let's go log back in with bsmith. And it shows a dialog. It says the username found was bsmith. So just another way, and it did plug in the correct number. So just another way that you could use to debug your stuff, just to make sure that this kind of thing is working. But hopefully that helps out. And definitely if the thing that you are trying to create doesn't work perfectly, you might want to at least skim through the part 2 video that I did on the login script, where I added more work to it because I took some of those scripts and made them a little better, a little more foolproof. But yeah, let me know.